everyone, it's Makaliah with Mak and Makeup. And today's video is going to be part of the wedding series, of course. It's going to be a venue now what video. Okay, so let's have the scenario of your venue provides a bridal suite, a bar for the bartender, but like no other, like no cocktail mixers or anything like that, just the bar and some bathrooms, tables and chairs. So that's all the venue provides for you, and that's what you're rolling with. Now, the only reason I'm doing this scenario is because that's what my venue provides. So essentially, when you're starting from having not a lot provided, which honestly is kind of what we wanted, but like I said, there are venues out there that will provide all the linens, the dishes, the food, the bar, the bartender, and they'll provide like decor and literally everything except for like photo, video, and DJ. Or some will even provide a DJ, but they won't provide like photos or videos. So, and some even provide like a coordinator as well. So our venue does not have a coordinator. I have a day of coordinator that is going to be helping me with setup, not necessarily cleanup, because I was like, look, I have people to help me clean up. I do need people to help set up though. And so she's essentially just going to like transition everything from ceremony to reception and dinner. Some venues provide a coordinator as well. So just look at what your venue provides and you can kind of go from there. Now, if they provide any of the things that I'm saying are kind of like your next steps, that's already one thing off your list that you don't have to worry about, and you can check it off. Because once you have your venue, once the venue is set in place, everything else can fall into place from there. So you should not look into anything but venue until you get the venue. I mean, you can look into like food and all that. I just don't recommend it until you have the venue set in place and where you're going to get married. One of the things I wish I kind of would have like looked into immediately was hair and makeup. Every single person I reached out to for hair and makeup was booked, and I was so mad. I was getting mad with the hair and makeup. I was like, what am I gonna do? Everyone I reached out to is booked. So honestly, if hair and makeup is gonna be a big deal for you in the sense that you're probably not gonna do that yourself, or you don't know someone already or have someone in mind, look into that. I would say after, or kind of like during your search of hair and makeup, because that one's probably going to take you a little bit, because depending on your area, depending on where you're getting married at, it's going to be a little hard to find right off the bat. So I would say while you're looking for that hair and makeup person, and while you're kind of like waiting for replies back, I would say definitely look into your food, your DJ, and photo and video. And then of course your food aspect, you should start looking into like doing food trials. I would say 100% do a food trial before you decide on your food. Definitely try it before you say, yeah, this is what I want, because there's going to be food that's offered at different prices per person, and it's just kind of what you're wanting things to cost overall. And it's really hard to set the food budget, because a lot of caterers will provide not just the food, but they'll provide like the plates, the silverware, the linens, the napkins. They'll provide a lot of that stuff for you, and that obviously can add to the cost. So even if the food is like, you're like, oh, the food's a great price, I averaged it out amongst like 80 or 90 people, and it's looking like the numbers are good. But then you got to factor in all those other things, right? So it does not include those other little things like what they're eating on and what they're eating with and how they're wiping their hands. And so keep that in mind when you're looking into catering, because you might be like, oh, this caterer, like they offer really good food choices. Yeah, the food's a little bit expensive, but that must include everything. No, it probably does not. So double check. So yeah, your DJ, catering, and then I would say if you don't have a coordinator, look for at least a day of coordinator. I don't think anyone really needs a full-on wedding planner unless you're so busy in your daily life and you can afford it. Then kudos to you, because they're pretty expensive, and that's because they're doing a lot of that work for you that you wouldn't have to do, right? And so wedding planners, their prices are fair because they are doing a lot of your wedding planning, but if it's something you can't afford, feel confident in yourself that you can plan this, but you will definitely need a day of person, unless you have plenty of like friends that are either willing to show up early to your wedding or not necessarily be in your wedding to some degree that can help set up, take down, and transition things. Good, great, use them. But for me, I was like, all the people that I'm inviting are people I want there to enjoy it, right? So along with a food trial, day of coordinator, DJ, another thing you want to look into is photography and videography if you want it. A lot of people do just go for photography, and I hear like so many people say, I wish I had video, because there are like some things that you just can't capture in a picture. Like pictures kind of give you that still moment in time, versus a video gives you like that moment of time along with the emotions, everyone else's reaction that is around, of course, and like all those extra little details that aren't always captured in just a photo, right? So we decided to do photo and video. I told my fiance, I was like, this is the one thing I will not budge on. It's my must. I want us to look back on this day and remember all these aspects, like years and years and years from now, because we have the photo and the video to go with it. On top of that, it's just fun to show your friends, your family, your future kids, future grandkids, great grandkids, you know, like it's just something that's sentimental to show for years and years and years and years to come. Now, granted, when you do photo and video, it gets so pricey, and that's where if you can budget correctly, you still might be able to do it, so don't like give up hope. But I definitely recommend doing lots of research on this, because there are a few people that will offer both in one company, which is nice, because if you have the same company doing your photo and video, then you're going to get the same kind of vibe from it, versus if you have two different companies, not that they can't like work together, but they might be fighting over certain moments in time, like trying to get the right angle of something, and they might not be capturing it the same way, if that makes sense. So the photo and videographer that we're going with, they are actually husband and wife. So they do this kind of like, I think it's like a little bit of their side gig. Another thing to think about is the drink aspect. So sometimes drinks will come with your food, whoever that is. Sometimes you have to go separate. It just kind of depends on the company. And I would definitely look into the drink aspect being a part of whoever you're going with for food, because then that way everything's kind of into one sum versus like two different companies. Because sometimes when you're paying separately, it actually gets a little bit more expensive, because you're having to pay all these fees for one and then the other fees for the other. Like, I don't know about you, but all the quotes I looked at, there's always like there's like a business tax or some sort of tax that was associated with the cost, and that's what was making things kind of more expensive. Like for my food, this like business tax added an extra like $800, you know, and on a $5,000 like quote, you're like $800 could take some off, right? But you know, that is what it is. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're paying for two different companies to do that, then unfortunately you end up paying two different business bulk tax, if that makes sense, versus one. So, I mean, that's obviously up to you and your budget and what you can do, but I would say try to find companies where you can get a 2-for-1, killing two birds, one stone. But I would say definitely get those main things out of the way, get them like set in stone, so in that way they're kind of like a big relief to you. Again, it gets so expensive because you are leaving so many deposits and you're reaching out to all these people. It gets really confusing. So have a way to track it by writing down vendors you've reached out to, writing down vendors you might be interested in. I know I kind of would write down, okay, I contacted this vendor, and then I usually have a note to go with it, like, I didn't really like them, or, oh, they're a really good option. And I have all that in my Notion tracker, which I know I'm going to be making a video on at some point. Definitely track it somehow so that you're kind of like knowing who you've already reached out to and who else you could be reaching out to and all that. Another thing is your save the dates. If you want to send out save the dates and invites, go for it. If you just want to do invites, do that. You know, some people, they do just send out invites only because you kind of announce to everyone, right? Like, oh, this is going to be our wedding day. You know, like people kind of already know. I think the purpose of a save the date isn't, what's nice about it is you can let people know ahead of time, hey, this is the date I have set in stone for my wedding, like, and you can give them a location if you want, but I would provide as minimal of details as possible. Like for ours, it was literally a picture, save the date, and then the day of our wedding with our names. That was it. And the reason I wanted to keep it that simple is because, you know, if people were interested in going and participating, potentially like being at my wedding, I would hope that they would reach out to me or like my fiance's parents or my parents, like, oh, hey, me and so-and-so are interested in going, like, where's the wedding going to be at? You know, like that is what I would hope with the save the date. Now, again, you can provide more information. You can provide even less information. You can just put a date and names if you want, you know, it's up to you. I got mine printed through Walmart though. And then they gave us the envelopes that had my address on it. And we essentially just like, so it already had the address like stamped on there. So all I had to do was write people's address on the envelope and then just like send them out, put some stamps on them and send them out. So I feel like that's a nice quick way to do it. There's also like Walgreens, there's all sorts of online options as well. I'm definitely going to look into maybe doing something else for our invites because I know our invites are going to be a little bit more involved with like information and all the stuff. We still have to make a wedding website and a registry and all those other things that come with the wedding planning. And so I'm like, I'll wait on the invites for a little bit longer. But I would definitely, if you want to send out save the dates, send them after you kind of get all these other things sorted out, because then you are confident in that you have things set in stone with a day, with a place. After that, I would say decide on who's going to be in your bridal party. So if you already have people in mind, which most people have who is going to be in their bridal party in mind, like once they're engaged. But I would say go ahead and ask those people. Be like, hey, I'm having my wedding. Like, are you interested in coming or in being my bridesmaid or my groomsman? Like, it's gonna be this day, located here. Let me know your thoughts. I did do bridesmaid like boxes and I gave it to my bridesmaids and asked them that way. I provided samples of the color for the dress. For my bridesmaids, what I'm letting them do is choose a color. So each person gets a color and then they work that out amongst themselves and they can choose whatever fabric, whatever style, whatever they want. Literally options are endless. All I want them to do is buy a dress and they can literally buy it from wherever. Definitely ask your bridal party after you figure out a lot of those initial details. I did also provide my bridal party with an info card on like when, where, and what for the wedding, like kind of like a brief synopsis of like, okay, like this is where it's gonna be, this is when, like here's the dress color, you know, yada yada yada, here's the color, here's the vibe, all that. So I would say definitely the next step is to figure that out. The next thing for figuring out once you kind of got those initial things in place is definitely your honeymoon. Start thinking about where you guys want to go. I let my fiance choose because I was like, look, I'm going to be super involved with wedding planning. One less thing I have to worry about is honeymoon. So you decide where we go for the honeymoon. I'm down for whatever. It doesn't have to be tropical. It could be cold. I don't care. Just pick a place and we'll go. Like I'll make it happen. So we looked in, we're going to do Iceland and that's going to be our honeymoon. And I'm really excited for it actually. Like at first I was like, Iceland, I immediately regretted my decision. I was like, Iceland, really? But when I looked into it, I was like, okay, yep, that's definitely where we're going. Kind of like your last thing after you got those initial things set up is definitely look into your honeymoon, where you guys want to go. And if you want to go like right after the wedding or if you want to wait a little bit, I recommend going right after because it's like it gives you time away from everybody else and you just get to enjoy time together. So I say 100% if you can, go right after the wedding. Another thing for your honeymoon to think about is putting it on a travel card, or putting your wedding expenses on a travel card and using them to pay for your honeymoon. Some other things that I have on my list of just like, they're kind of like things that I'm working on in the background constantly. Like it's kind of like, oh, if I have a moment, like I'll revisit it. One of them being the guest list, and not because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take family off or people I want there. No, what it is I have two lists. I have A and B. A list is like family, close friends. They're the must-have people there. Like those are the people you want at your wedding. And then there's B list, which is like people you want there, but you don't have room for them. So, or maybe it's not that you don't have room, but it's like, because of like budgeting and all that, you kind of want to keep your numbers as low as you can. Now that's not possible for everyone, but in my situation, I want to try and keep them under 100 if I can. And so for me, I have my B list of people, which honestly, my A and my B list don't even exceed 100. They're actually in, I think 90 or something. It's like 90 something. But I'm factoring in vendors as well. So like my DJ, my day of coordinator, my photo video people, and then like, you know, the bartender and like, you know, all those people that are going to be working my wedding. I need to also provide some food or something for them, or an area where they can take a break, because they're going to be working the whole day. So that's another thing to keep in mind with your guest list, is you should feed your vendors as well and provide a place for them to have a break and rest. So that's kind of like another thing to consider in revisit is your guest list. Just know that everything will work itself out and everything will be how it is. And at the end of the day, you decide who's at your wedding. Don't let people tell you, oh, you have to invite so-and-so. You don't have to invite anybody. Like, you really don't. Invite who you want to invite and only invite those people. Another thing to look into once you have venue in place is who's going to marry you, your officiant. If you go to church and you want a pastor or a priest to do it, I would start asking some that you see at church and hopefully that know you pretty well. And I would say ask them to do it if they're willing to. Or you can also ask someone in your family as well. I know my cousin did that at her wedding. She asked my dad to be her officiator and he did it with like, he was like, absolutely. So I definitely recommend, you know, finding someone for that as well. And another thing to consider is your timeline of events. Again, stuff that you can work on in the background. That's kind of like, okay, don't have anything I'm working on right now. Let me get to this. So your timeline is like essentially your rehearsal dinner kind of overview, your ceremony overview, your reception overview, and then like an overview of the day, if that makes sense. Like that's how I have mine broken up. But I recommend kind of looking into kind of the pre-ceremony, the ceremony, after the ceremony, like cocktail hour, and then reception time, and like just having a rough layout of things. Depending on how involved your coordinator is, they can definitely help you with that. And I will be running my timeline by my coordinator at some point just to be like, does this sound like this is feasible for you? And you know, like, does this sound like a good timeline, or should I be concerned? Another thing to work on in the background is your photo shot list. So when you know, like the photos you want while you're getting ready, the photos you want before ceremony, the photos you want after ceremony, and then what photos you want during like the reception. So like cake cutting usually is what people want. If you want to do a fake exit, you know, there's like all those other little things to consider. And then you kind of look at how long you have your photographer, videographer there and kind of decide, okay, like what can they get done in this amount of time? Like, what are my must-haves and what are like things that I'm like, you know, I don't care too much for it. So, and then again, touching base with them at a later time and being like, does this sound like feasible to you guys? Or do you recommend a different way? And you know, all that stuff. So that's like kind of it for now. I say kind of only because it's like, those are like your initial things that I think you need to have done. So I'm going to recap You have your venue, now what? So to recap, DJ, coordinator, catering, photo, video, and hair and makeup. So those are like your next things to tackle. And those can take quite some time. So don't get super discouraged with it. Like, it takes a little bit for vendors to get back to you. It also takes a little bit of time to do your research and figure those things out. But once you have your venue, all those things can fall into place so much easier. So definitely do not look into any of these things until you have your venue. The only thing you may be able to look into prior is hair and makeup, only because if you know someone who does those things, or you have a hairstylist or a makeup artist or already, you could just touch base with them and say like, oh, hey, I'm going to be getting married this time. I'm most likely going to be getting married in this place. Is that something you can do for me? And then lastly, the things that you can be working on kind of in the background while you're figuring all these things out is your save the dates, asking your bridal party or wedding party, scheduling trials, so food, hair, and makeup, looking at your timeline of events, how you want that to be sorted out, and then looking at your guest list and your Photoshop list. So those are the things I would definitely recommend doing somewhat in that order. You know, not everything's going to be perfect in that order, but I would say definitely look into those bigger ticket items right after you get your venue, just so that you can start getting an idea of who can be your DJ, who can be your day of coordinator, who can do the food, who can do, you know, your officiating. Like, look into all those little, I don't want to say little, but definitely look into those bigger things and get an idea, a sense of what that's all going to entail and look like, and then just go from there. So that's all I got for this video today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope it's so informative. Like I said, I'm going to be making a video on my Notion tracker, and I will also be showing you guys how to set that up so that you can do it yourselves. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be having more videos come your way. Bye!